Hello and welcome to Techweek TV, powered by Callaghan Innovation. My name is Jake Miller. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Unfiltered. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We're really excited to be here to host this session today on the Tech Intern. So everything you need to know about structuring internship programs and also from an intern's perspective, the best way to go about getting some of these internship roles. So we're joined by a phenomenal panel today of experts from many different backgrounds. So we have Jill, a professor at the University of Auckland and a director of the Auckland ICT Graduate School. We have Nuanthe, the CEO of ICE, so thank you so much for joining us. Michael Potts, Insights Analyst at Data Insight. And we have Mona, who's a UI and UX at Satellite. Yep. And we also have, finally, Trent, the CEO of Summer of Tech. So guys, thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. So to kick this off, I'd love to just understand a little bit more about why this concept of interns and internship is something that you're all passionate about and how you fit into it. Have you been an intern? Are you hiring interns? Like, how do you fit into this world of internship? So maybe starting with you, Nuanthe.
Sure, no pressure, Jake. In terms of interns, yes, my journey began as an intern in New Zealand as well, through university, and I now see the value on both ends. So I'm actually, an organisation that I lead heads up working with organisations to help design programs, to help build skill sets and attract interns into their organisations. The other side of it is I'm also the chair of the Auckland ICT Graduate School Advisory Board, and as part of that role, it's about helping our organisations, but also our interns coming through the pipeline to help establish pathways for them and find the right sort of opportunities, but also the right types of career pathways as they start to progress in their world of work.
Fantastic.
And Michael's a good example of that.
Yeah, so. Thank you. Yeah, what about you, Michael?
So at the end of, as a part of the Masters of Information Technology, which is about 3-4 years old, is it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did an internship at the end, which is a part of the Masters, and I did mine at Kiwi Bank as a data governance analyst, and then and with that experience, I came out with very good skills that I could quite quickly move into my position at Data Insight.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And Jill, how do you sort of fit into this world?
Right, so I'm the director of the Auckland ICT Grad School, as you said.
Yes.
And we set up the internship program as the last part of this master's qualification. So it's a course that the students do as well as working in industry.
Yeah.
So it gives the students a real-world experience at the end of the theoretical learnings within the university.
Yeah, no, it's a great program. Yeah. And what about you, Mona?
So I got internship when I was in second year with Zero. It was 2017, 2018 through Summer of Tech.
Okay.
And then in the last year I got another internship with Air New Zealand, and it's really helped me to learn a lot of skills and experience to make me landing on my first job as a UX UI.
That's very cool. Yeah, thank you. And Summer of Tech's obviously directly in this space. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so at Summer of Tech, what we're trying to do is get around that chicken and egg problem where it's hard to find a job without experience, and yet you can't get experience without having a job. So we're a not-for-profit, and we place about 300 interns and mostly tech-related internships every summer.
Yeah, and what are the biggest objections you come up against? Because obviously, these big successful companies, sometimes, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate for the sake of the conversation, that the CEOs or the functional heads might think, oh, it's just more work than it's worth. This person doesn't know a lot at this point. They're just young. So how do you come up against that objection, and how do you counter that?
Less often than you might think. I think all of us can remember a time when we had our first job and basically someone gave us a break. So
exactly.
No, the tenor of the conversations that we have are much more positive than that.
That's good to hear.
Sometimes organisations are self-aware enough to realise that they can't really support an intern well. So I think the difference with sort of hiring someone kind of directly through Trade Me Jobs or a SEEK or something like that is that they do come with a kind of set of skills and experiences. And whereas an intern, you do need that extra level of support, coaching, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of conversation out there, and it's been sort of a hotly debated topic. I often see it coming up on LinkedIn, and and people fiercely debating either sides of the argument about internships and whether it's fair for them to be versus paid. What are all of your thoughts on that? Like, should all internships be paid?
So our students receive a $5,000 stipend. So it's not paid, but there is some reward for it. It's part of their learning. So I think, that's quite a good balance between paid employment and studying.
No, absolutely.
I think, Jake, organisations are always going to either pay or not pay, right? And the ones that don't pay, that's just who they are, that's how the organisation functions, and it works for them. So as a student, my advice would be to work that out if it's right for you. If you're looking for some form of income and as part of your student loans and being a student, and I'm sure we've all experienced that at one point in our lives, if income's key to that process, absolutely then look for internships that pay you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But there are organisations out there, not just in New Zealand, but overseas as well. Some of our clients across APAC, as a trial, as part of that remit in that country, it's unpaid. So you can't, it's legislation, right?
I think that's crazy. I feel really passionate that it's borderline unethical not to pay interns. I think that we all have a role, especially large organisations, to give back and grow that kind of next generation of tech talent. And particularly when you look at the kind of dollars that we're talking about, so our interns on average earn $24 an hour, which is a salary equivalent of about $48,000. So for some of these organisations to plead poor, I think is, and particularly with Callaghan offering the experience grants here in New Zealand, hundreds of students are paid for thanks to Callaghan, fully funded. So we feel pretty passionate about it at Summer of Tech that they should all be paid internships.
Okay, and if you don't mind me asking, you both mentioned you started off in internships. Were they paid? Were they not paid? How did you think about that problem when you were first going into it?
For me, both of them was paid, but for me, I really was looking for experience, so I was really willing to go for something unpaid if it's the right place and I will gain experience from this, so it's okay for me. But I was lucky, both of them was paid. So it was make me so happy, to be honest.
It's so nice.
It was as a student.
Mine was paid because it was through the Masters of IT.
Okay.
With the skills I got from it and how instantaneously it took me into the industry, even if it was unpaid, I would have still benefited from it, but it's definitely useful for that to be the case. There was another that did offer me one at some point, and it wasn't paid. But I think even then it would have been good skills, but ultimately it's always preferable. We're always looking for the ones that...
Exactly, and I think Trent raises a good point. If the companies had, they have a lot of money, these companies, and somebody's coming in and putting in the hours, it is fair. And, I can kind of speak on this personally a little bit because at Unfiltered we have an intern right now who's been with us for a few months, and he is a paid intern and works incredibly hard. He comes in every day, and it's not it's sure that the roles for someone, it's not incredibly complex stuff because they are young and you can't expect that, but at the same time it's still work that we would have had to otherwise do, right? And we would have had to pay people to do. So anyway, I think it's an interesting conversation. I'd love to learn more about what sort of a successful structure of an internship program looks like. Maybe you can talk to this, Trent, to start with. What you obviously work with a lot of companies that have them. You presumably advise them on how to put them into place. What does success look like?
I think it's got lots of different flavours. I think it really depends on the organisation, but I think there are some common criteria. So for example, that they are, like I said, well supported. So that means that they've got a person who acts as a mentor or a coach or a people manager. I think it works really well when it's real work, if you know what I mean. It's not getting the coffees for the team or doing the photocopying. It's kind of actually, it's coding if you're a developer, or it's, it's real world design if you're a designer. So, I think that there's sort of some high level criteria like that.
Absolutely. Are there educational places people can go, if these companies can go if they want to work out how to structure these programs? Because if let's say you're a big company that has 3,000 staff and you have never had a program before, potentially you could hire 100 interns at different areas. How should you go about learning about the best way to put that in place?
There is a website called Intern Quest, which kind of has some of that high level advice for employers.
Okay.
So
that's great to hear.
Yeah, that's a quick Google away, but that's got a lot of that kind of resources and that sort of stuff. And I imagine at the ICT grad school you'd have some material as well.
We have an industry engagement manager. And so if someone wants to set up an internship, they can come and speak to her, and we will scope a project with the company. And generally, a project should be something that is quite well defined. We find that they do, they are all of a different nature. So recently I supervised students that were working for a company called AsBuilt, which is a building information management company. And they had an idea of how they might want to move forward, and they just wanted to trial that. So they hired 4 students as interns, and those students built a prototype it was quite a well-defined project, but the students went far beyond what the company actually expected them to do. So it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and through the university, how do you select these companies? Like, are the students going out and finding the companies that they want to intern at, or does the university have maybe 100 companies that you work with and you place those students in those?
Yes, so we run a speed networking event, and industry comes in and does a speed interview with each of the students. And then the companies can choose which of those students they would like to have as interns. So we actually place the students in the companies rather than the companies.
No, that's great advice. Yeah, and Mona, how do you think interns can make themselves desirable? Like, when you got your first internship, what do you think you did to stand out when there's always countless people wanting to get one of these roles?
Oh, I didn't done anything. I just was trying to be as calm as I can. But like, I found like I wasn't like very good as hard skills, to be honest. But I found the more looking for soft skills so much. So like whatever the interviews, like we will go 2 or 3 interviews. They're looking how you communicate, how you talk, because they're looking for like, are you gonna argue with people with there? How are you gonna solve any problems? So like 60% more for soft skills and 40% hard skills.
Okay.
Because like you are a student and you're gonna learn. Exactly. So
that's good advice. What about you, Michael?
Exactly.
Like, how did you position yourself to get that early internship?
Yeah, you're right, by the way. The soft skills is something that's emphasised. Generally, anyone who has a sort of a level of education can come in with a bare minimum of coding experience, but the ability to learn and also be flexible with being able to pick up new tasks and new languages, for example. You might be put on a project that requires Power BI, which is a dashboarding software.
Yes.
But next minute you'll given a SAS license and you're coding in full SAS and some automation or something.
Yeah.
So they're really looking for people who have that ability to jump about. The bare minimum of technical skills is required, and they'll test that in the interviews. But beyond that, they're looking for a person who is a cultural fit, and who is going to really, really enhance their business, and not just be someone who can sort of do the work. That's what they're really looking for these days.
Yeah, and you know, like, my understanding is you have interns at ICE, right?
I do.
Yeah. So as the CEO of ICE, like, when you're doing these interviews, what will make someone truly stand out to you?
Curiosity. I think we don't actually hire tech interns ourselves, but we do hire tech interns for our clients on behalf of them. Curiosity is a big one, and just the ability to ask questions is part of that, and be open to failing and taking risks. Too often, just in terms of our own journey, you come out of university or high school, university, and then you look for a job and you get your job, and there's almost this linear pathway that you kind of self-created or society has constructed. And so when you get into the world of work, you're immediately just thinking there's just one pathway, and there's only a certain amount of questions you can ask or feel comfortable asking. So for me, it's more about getting a sense of, are you willing to take risks? Are you going to ask some questions and be flexible?
Yeah, and what are some of the very real benefits you see these internship programs providing from a productivity perspective for your clients and, for the companies that you position interns into?
Some real experience, working with industry as well, gaining experience, working for people, leaders, both technical and non-technical, I think is fantastic for someone young coming through. You also start to get exposed to the world of work in terms of how organisations are structured, because every organisation is just structured so differently. So you've got startups to high growth to multinationals. And as an intern, if you've got the opportunity to go and actually work along some of these types of businesses, it gives you a complete awareness of how they operate, what they're looking for, and what does success look like for those sorts of organisations, because they're very varied.
Yeah, one of the things I think came up in discussions internally at Unfiltered this week is one of our interns travelled with me down to Christchurch to do a bunch of meetings, and I probably didn't need him to come there in terms of, like, I was obviously doing most of the deal closing and talking in the meetings as the CEO of the company, but you want to provide that experience and you almost have a responsibility to, and I went back to my colleagues and I said, in terms of this internship program, this is what I said, I'm not sure if you agree with this, I said, 30% should be us going out of our way to put him in front of people that he can learn, even if he's not necessarily going to be contributing value right now. And 70% should be actually doing some work to help the business go forward.
Yeah.
That was kind of the percentage I put on it. But I think it's got to be both, right? You have to, as an employer, have the social sort of responsibility and care to really show them, as you say, not just get the coffee and do the photocopying. It's interesting. So I guess final couple of questions. I think internships are one way to obviously learn as a young person. But if you, I think building relationships with the people that you work for so that they can become more mentoring relationships over time is really powerful as well. Like I can imagine with the university and with Summer of Tech, you must see all the time these students going into these companies and then actually building really, lifelong and, relationships. So what do you think is the best way to actually cultivate those so that it becomes more than just a summer here or there?
I'm not sure. I think you're absolutely right that it's a fabulous opportunity for employees in an existing organisation. I don't know if you're finding this, but it's sort of that first step into people management for a lot of people is when you can mentor a junior and you do the coaching. There's a lot of growth opportunities there. But I don't know, it seems to happen quite organically and quite naturally for those relationships to develop. We certainly, as part of Summer of Tech, you kind of have to have a support person, people manager, coach, whatever you want to call it, mentor. So I guess we have that as part of inbuilt into the program.
Yeah, and both through the program and the university program as well, what percentages do you see of the interns becoming full-time employees?
So for us, 83% of interns stay with their employer.
Really?
So
Wow.
whether that's part-time or full-time, because they may still be at university and finishing off their degree. So a pretty good chunk, 4 out of 5.
Yeah, and students can come and apply to Summer of Tech to be a part of the program?
Absolutely, yeah. So by September, we'll have about 5,000 students registered with Summer of Tech. So
That's great. And what about with the
country.
university in terms of that sort of retention rate as such?
So again, it's very, very high, the retention rate.
Yeah.
So either they carry on with the company they're interning with, or they do get a role in another company like Michael has.
Yeah.
I think just about everyone, has a role when they finish their internship.
Yeah, and for the students watching this, when they're trying to work out, what company to apply to, like if you're a talented young person, you can probably get in the door with a lot of great companies. So what considerations, I'd be interested to hear from all of you three on what considerations you think should go into what company to actually go to. How do you decide?
For me, like what projects they are working with, like my dream was working with Air New Zealand, like as internship, because I love their app, I love their products, and I know like when I go there, I will learn too much. The same with Zero, so it's more like what you want to learn, what you're gonna want to get out from this internship is the most important thing. Yeah, and the culture and environment isn't going to fit you or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think culture is really important.
It is. Yeah.
What about you, Michael?
It's important to be flexible but somewhat specific. Companies do like it. Say, especially at the moment, everyone's getting really into network security. Yeah. I noticed that, for example, at the networking event, when someone said, they're passionate about networking security and pen testing, they were swept up quite quickly. Yeah. The more general sort of, I'm interested in this, this, and this, and this, that vagueness wasn't treated quite as well. But obviously, as soon as they specified that they're more into full stack development, for example, that's so it's good to have an idea of what you generally want to do, generally specifically. If you're too vague, like I might be being right now.
No, it's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're sort of saying, I like development and I like analytics and I like this and this and this, and I'm so open-minded, I don't know what to do. They do want you to have some direction and passion and particular way you want to grow. Yeah. So that's always a good approach for any kind of internship.
Yeah. What have you found, Yuanthe?
Can I just say it's okay to not know as well. You don't know what you don't know starting out, and that's absolutely fine. I think what is important though is to understand brand alignment and see if the organisation you're looking to apply for works with your purpose and your own values and has potential pathways to where you want to go in your career. So if you want to travel, maybe think of organisations that have got hubs across the world or have those potential opportunities available to them. If you want to stay in New Zealand and hone your skills, like Michael was talking about, then great, go for some specialist businesses that you know you're going to be able to get highly technical and build really core deep skills. But for the most part, I think it's about enjoying the opportunity as well when you do get one. And don't be afraid to also, coming back to Jake, your question before around mentors, ask someone if you start to meet somebody in your internship to be your mentor. Don't be afraid to ask the question, right?
Yeah.
Don't expect them to come round to you and ask them that. 3 of my first bosses as a graduate are still my mentors today, and that's 12 years later. And I absolutely love it because they know you for you, and they'll be upfront and honest and only look after you.
That's an awesome point. Yeah, the only 2 points I'd maybe add is like passion for the company. You know, if somebody approaches me and says like, well, I love Unfiltered, I really want to get involved, like you're much more likely to give that person time as opposed to if not. And then probably secondly is the power of warm introductions, right? And that's kind of what, Summer of Tech's all about, is like actually facilitating opportunities. If you know someone that knows somebody that trusts you, then they can provide that connection. And yeah. So awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Yeah, it's been a huge honour, and I think all of you all have fascinating stories, and this panel was super interesting and kind of colliding worlds from people that have gone through, both from an intern perspective to people that are putting people in roles to, the educational sector. So thank you guys so much for taking the time, and thank you all very much to the viewers for watching. We look forward to seeing you at the next session on Techweek TV, brought to you by Callaghan Innovations. See you soon. Thank you so much.